Hi. Good, how are you? Hi, Lisa. Thank you for everything.
Pleasure.
Work off this one?
Um,
I'll work off that.
yeah,
Get started?
I think so.
Okay.
Everyone take their seats.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask everyone to please take their seats. Good morning, everyone. It is my absolute honour and pleasure to welcome you all to this special occasion as we farewell and thank Rabbi Ralph for all that he has done for our shul and our community, and to wish him and Caron well as they embark on a new journey. After the past 2 years of being together so rarely in person, I am sure that you will all agree how wonderful it is to be here in the same place with Rabbi Ralph, a person whose warmth, energy and humanity rejuvenated our shul and touched us all. The format of this morning is very much a reflection of this, highlighting the Rabbi's connection to people of different ages, backgrounds and perspectives on how to live a meaningful, modern Orthodox Jewish life. Our speakers will focus on the impact Rabbi Ralph has made on their lives and on those around them. For those of you who don't know me, I am Henry Lanza. For my part, I came to know Rabbi Ralph during his time at Mount Scopus College, where I served as treasurer and then foundation president at the time he was appointed as the college rabbi. He was brilliant in that role, developing strong relationships with every student, including my own children, and leaving an enduring legacy of pride, curiosity, and optimism at the college. In truth, he was so sensational as a college rabbi, I was somewhat surprised when he put his hand up to take on the challenge of rebuilding and re-energising Caulfield Shul. But it didn't take long for it to make perfect sense. Rabbi Ralph proved himself to be a formidable change agent, restoring the shul's status as Melbourne's largest, most vibrant modern Orthodox synagogue. Rabbi Ralph has been both a rabbi and a friend to Genende and me and to our children. Like many of you, over the past 14 years, he has been there as our lives have played out. He has stood with us under the chuppah, marrying our children. He has stood with us and comforted us in our times of loss and grief. He has celebrated us with us as we became grandparents. And he has stood at the pulpit, eloquently providing us with meaningful drashot, enabling us to all think not only about the Torah and about Israel, but about our actions and our attitudes. Rabbi Ralph has also challenged us. He has at times articulated ideas beyond our own prism, ensuring that we consider human rights and social justice issues on a very personal level. He encouraged us to rethink our attitudes on a myriad of topics, inviting us to think about climate change, refugees, and the role of women in orthodoxy. He encouraged us to be more inclusive and accepting of those who felt alienated in our community and those who felt they were not being heard. His compassion and his energy knew no bounds, constantly empowering us with hope and encouraging us to be better people, better Jews. He also continually challenged himself by taking on leadership roles in the wider community, including as senior rabbi to the Australian Defence Force, as a member of the Victorian Premier's Multi-Faith Advisory Group, and also as the National Editorial Board of the Australian Israel and Jewish Affairs Council, for whom he has also led a series of multi-faith missions to Israel. The Australian government has recognised Rabbi Ralph with a Medal of the Order of Australia in 2018 for his services to multi-faith relations and to the Jewish community of Victoria. And last week, Rabbi Ralph was the recipient of the prestigious General Sir John Monash Award for outstanding service to the Jewish community. The JCCV recognised Rabbi Ralph's role in building bridges of tolerance with a passion for social justice. We wish you a hearty mazel tov on this well-deserved honour. Jewish Care is the latest beneficiary of Rabbi Ralph's talent and energy, and given the significance of the organisation to Victoria's Jewish community, it is indeed a positive development for us all. I would like at this time to acknowledge and to welcome our new Rabbi, Daniel and Rabbitzin Sarah Rabin. We trust that you will put your own flavours on the leadership of our congregation and that you will serve it with distinction. And we congratulate you on your appointments and look forward to a long and enduring future with both of you at the helm. I would also like to welcome our Federal Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, David Southwick, State Member for Caulfield and Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party in Victoria, and Josh Burns, Federal Member for Macnamara. As we are about to commence the Festival of Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, we hope that you, Rabbi Ralph and Caron, can always be surrounded by light and by joy, and that life will provide you and your family with many opportunities to rejoice. Just like Hanukkah, when we add another flame of light each night, may you continue to add much more light and much more joy in our community and flourish in all of your future endeavours. It seems fitting that when our incoming president, Howard Zimer, previously held the role of shul president, he in fact oversaw the inspired appointment of Rabbi Ralph to bring new life to our shul. Howard has had a long association with Caulfield Shul, having begun as a board member in 1996. He has also held various positions over the years, including as vice president and president from 2005 to 2007. And we are delighted that he has once again taken on the role of president. Together with a new, younger and energised board, the future of our shul is in safe hands. When he is not taking care of Caulfield Shul, Howard consults as an endocrinologist. Please join with me in welcoming our president, Howard Zimer, to say a few words.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you for all your help over the years, and we look forward to having your contributions in the future also. Kvod Rabbanim, distinguished members and guests. Firstly, I want to thank the engagement team, especially our Chief Executive Officer, Rachel Mihalovic, and Lisa Silva, who have so capably organised today's function. Today we gather to celebrate the 14 years of service of Rabbi Genende to the Caulfield Hebrew congregation. I can still remember in 2006 when the treasurer, Mr. Gary Friedman, who I'm so happy to see here today, came to me and said, I believe the vacant position of Rabbi of Caulfield Hebrew Congregation would be a good choice would be to look at Rabbi Genende. And from then started a number of meetings I had in 2006 with Rabbi Genende, which ultimately culminated in his appointment as the Rabbi of Caulfield Hebrew Congregation in August 2017. Rabbi Ralph joined us at a time when Caulfield Shul had suffered a difficult period in its history. Membership had declined dramatically, and we were searching for a pathway for recovery. Our fractured community was in need of healing. Rabbi Ralph took the brave step from his secure job at Mount Scopus College to join our congregation. In the following months, membership and seat applications flooded in a testament to Rabbi Ralph's popularity and standing in the community. He brought the compassion, healing, the energy and commitment which resulted in success and growth. Rabbi Ralph's achievements during his 14 years are vast and reflect a myriad of programs addressing all ages. Starting with his weekly message, Rabbi Genende Keeps in Touch, and his weekly pre-Shabbat videos. Education and Jewish learning were key pillars to his tenure. His initiatives included the Wednesday morning Parasha Shir, Shabbat afternoon pre-Mincha Shir in summer, daily Daf Yomi Talmud study, pre-Pesach Seder learning, and the well-attended Tikkun Leil Shavuot lecture and study programs. Rabbi Ralph instituted the Scholars in Residence program, and with lecture series utilising highly sought-after local educators as well as overseas scholars, including Rabbi and Rebbetzin Neuwirth, Rabbi Shmuley Bateach, Rabbi Dov Lipman, and Rabbi Stav from Sohar in Israel. Rabbi Ralph initiated the Cholent and Chat, where the weekly Kiddush was incorporated with Cholent, and guest speakers either locally from our community or overseas addressing the congregation on topics of interest. The rabbi invited guest speakers for Sudah Shlishit at the Shabbat afternoon services, and there were guest speakers organised for the pre-Slichot service, Tisha B'Av and Shabbat HaGadol. In addition to education programs, the rabbi coordinated Purim and Hanukkah functions, including his own fabled costume performances for our children's entertainment. He was a great supporter of expanding our Yom HaAtzmaut breakfast function, which progressed from our hall at Caulfield Shul to a grand brunch breakfast at the Crown Palladium. The religious services were modified to reflect consistent Ashkenazi style and nusach, and a new prayer for Australia and our armed forces was formulated. Kabbalat Shabbat services were enhanced by the pre-davening L'chaim to boost our social contact with the members, as well as the introduction of a mechitza in the men's section in the main shul. Rabbi Ralph facilitated youth programs, appointing and working with youth directors and working with the Hineni youth group, which he encouraged transferring from St Kilda Shul to Caulfield Shul. The B'nai Mitzvah programs were re-established. In recent years, a post-Bar Mitzvah boys program named Zusha and a post-Bat Mitzvah program named Zohar was instituted. The rabbi was instrumental in highlighting the importance of child safety, and a priority was ensuring that the Caulfield Shul instituted a best practice approach. What stood out was the spectrum of ages that were catered for. Rabbi Ralph's initiatives included Tuesday Schmooze Day for seniors program and a mums and bubs session for our kiddies. Services at the aged care facilities were organised by the rabbi. Premarital education, couples education, and young married connections Jewish discussion groups were conducted. The rabbi established the Inca 572 group for 23 to 30-year-old age group, which held Friday night dinners incorporating fascinating guest speakers. Social justice and care for the disadvantaged was championed with a new service of soup, sandwiches, and chat called Darchei Shalom, which was organised for the disadvantaged at the St Kilda Housing Commission. On high holidays, Rabbi Ralph reconfigured services with a drasha at the end of a service and a 1 p.m. finish on Rosh Hashanah. Would you believe it? He championed a kids program with both education and entertainment on the high holidays. A coffee tent was organised, although I'm led to believe it was Caron's idea rather than the rabbi's. The rabbi established a novel communal service with Shofar in the Park, which started in 2012. There were fast talks for young adults on high holidays organised. On Simchat Torah, women were able to dance through the Torah, and a women's learning program on Simchat Torah was commenced. There were visiting international speakers during his 14 years, including the late Rabbi Lord Sachs, Anatoly Sharansky, Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, and Knesset member, now Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. All these activities occurred, including the day-to-day conducting of services, life cycle celebrations, pastoral care with sick visiting, occurred in addition to the roles as outlined by Henry to the Armed Forces of Australia, to the Jewish Christian Muslim Association, the Premier's Multi-Faith Advisory Group, and also missions that he led with multi-faith leaders to Israel. And as Henry has mentioned, the Rabbi was rewarded in 2018 in the Order of Australia Honours. The Rabbi's vision of a community centre to cater for Caulfield Shul started a decade ago with the commencement of planning of a fit-for-purpose community centre to provide state-of-the-art facility for Caulfield Shul and the Caulfield community, together with a renovated synagogue. This has progressed to fully prepared plans with a council permit. In the last few weeks of the Rabbi's work at Caulfield Shul, we read in Sefer Devarim where Moses repeated the laws of the Torah to the children of Israel. One particular instruction in chapter 26, verse 12, is when you give your tithe of your crops, you shall separate portions for the poor, including for the ger, the yatom, and the almanah. This translates as the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. This social concept is a message over 14 years that Rabbi Ralph imparted to our congregation. Ger represents stranger or outsider. Our rabbi has dedicated his years in the community to making everyone welcome at Caulfield Shul. He is in champion inclusiveness and not estranging fellow Jews. Ger also means convert, and I witnessed Shabbat after Shabbat how the rabbi warmly welcomed and warmly engaged with those converting to Judaism. Ger or Gar means inhabitants, and Rabbi Ralph has demonstrated how to care for and to be part of the wider Australian community without abandoning one's commitment to modern Orthodox Judaism. Yatom means orphan, and almanah means widow, which also highlights the rabbi's superb pastoral skills. Our rabbi's tenure spanned a period of time where our founding fathers, who were often Holocaust survivors, were aging and many were passing on. Our rabbi was there to support the survivors in their last years and then subsequently showing all his compassion, empathy and support for the next generation who mourned their loss. Rabbi Ralph, looking after the ger v'yatom v'almanah, was your ethos, treating everyone equally, welcoming them, showing empathy, providing support for mourners and other disadvantaged members of the community. Rabbi Ralph has left the congregation in a much stronger position. And rightfully, we have regained our place as a prominent Jewish institution in the Australian community. Thank you, Ralph, for all your dedication and work for our congregation and the success you have brought to our institution. I wish you, Rabbi Ralph, lots of success at Jewish Care and best wishes for the future for you, Caron, your children and grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Howard, for those very nice words. I'm delighted to invite Professor Frank Oberklade to say a few words. Professor Oberklade is a leading paediatrician and is heavily involved in child and family policy with both the state and federal governments. He is recognised both in Australia and overseas for his work with early childhood development and child mental health. Please join with me in welcoming Professor Oberklade to the podium.
Thanks very much, Rabbi Ralph, Caron, your rabbinical colleagues, honoured guests. In my day-to-day work, it's typical of any academic. I see children and families, I do some teaching, and I do research, a lot of research. And when I was starting off my research career, I thought if I did good quality research and got it published in high-quality journals, the world would change. And I did good research and it got published in prestigious international journals and nothing happened. the world didn't change. And I realised then that you can't just do good research. You've got to really start thinking about the impact that your research has on the broader community. We call it translational research. And over the years, the centre that I used to lead invested very heavily in translational research. And most universities and most research institutes now are interested in not just doing their research, but the impact that that research has on the broader community. You take a platform and you broaden it to have an influence beyond the four walls of your institution. Now, where is he going with this, I can see you thinking? Well, in a metaphorical way, we can look at a shul as a version of a research institute. It's a platform for all sorts of people with all sorts of aspirations. Traditionally, of course, the core of a shul is davening. And it's been that way for thousands of years in thousands of shuls all across the world. And the rabbi leads the congregation in prayer. And that's always has been, always will be, the core function of a shul. Many of them also do educational programs because learning is also central to Judaism. But there's a third function, in my view, and that is operationalizing tikkun olam, healing the world. For me, it's the equivalent of translational research. How do we take our values, our ethics, our learnings, our education, and make a difference in the broader world? And that's well beyond the walls of a shul. A light unto nations, our chosen people, an example for the rest of the world. I found on an American communal organisation website the other day 9 core values they articulated, 9 core Jewish values. And forgive my Hebrew, Rabbi. Emunah, trustworthiness. Kavod, respect. Achrayut, responsibility. Tzedek, fairness. Kehila, community. Sever panim yafot, kindness, warmth, positivity. Dugma ushet, role modelling. Trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, community, kindness, warmth, positivity, and role modelling. These are values we want to pass on to our children, and surely these are values that we want to share with the world. If we look around, there's no shortage of issues that we can get involved in if we believe in tikkun olam. We've heard some of them earlier this morning. Homelessness, loneliness, racism, the plight of our Indigenous community, refugees, climate change. They're all issues of social justice. And Jews have been very prominent historically in many parts of the world for our commitment to social justice, making a difference to those people that have been marginalised, to include people that have been left out. Do we blame people if they fall in love with somebody of the same gender? Can we blame people if they fall in love with somebody who's not Jewish? Is our Jewish tent big enough to promote social inclusion? Do we care enough to look beyond our own 4 walls of the shul to make a difference to the wider world? Ralph Genende has been a leader in promoting this translation of Jewish values, caring enough and brave enough to advocate for social justice. And that hasn't been popular with everybody, and he's taken quite a battering at times. For me, one of the important functions of a modern Orthodox shul is tikkun olam. I came to Caulfield with Faye and our family from a traditional shul, a house of prayer, and I'd heard, like many people, of a new progressive rabbi who was making a difference at Caulfield. And we got more than we bargained for. And Dov joined him a year later, and as Jeffrey Mamoff used to say, that was the A-team. You could scalp tickets for the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services. And our attraction was this broader horizons of Caulfield Shul. So Ralph held very strong values, looked beyond the walls, wanted to translate Jewish values that we hold so dearly, tikkun olam. So he got involved in activities that have been mentioned before by Howard, soup and chat, asylum seeker resource centre, Aboriginal leaders, dialogue with other faiths, research ethics committees, a rabbi for the ADF. He also made Caulfield Shul a true Beit Knesset, a meeting place. The Bubs playgroup, which used to be called Mums and Bubs and then became Caulfield Bubs, thank goodness, because fathers sometimes are involved with babies as well. The Scholar in Residence program, and a Beit Midrash, a house of learning. Who can forget those inspiring speeches on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? The weekly comments in the From the Rabbi every Thursday, always interesting in linking lessons from the Torah with lessons for everyday life. Ralph and I share a love of poetry, and I'm going to quote you something from Mary Angelo that Rabbi wrote about in his farewell message to the congregation. And I quote, "At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They'll remember how you made them feel." And for many of us, Ralph has officiated at important family events in the life cycle, celebrations, births, weddings, brisses, and has also been with us in times of grief. And we can all remember how he made us feel. His qualities of humility, compassion, thoughtfulness, his gentle affirmation and support, his choice of words, the soft way he was able to communicate them. Ralph, you have stimulated our minds and touched our hearts, and we are forever grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. It gives me great pleasure to invite Rani Janovic to say a few words. Rani works at Mount Scopus College, formerly as a primary teacher and currently as a secondary Jewish studies teacher. She's a mother of 2 gorgeous children with another on the way. Both her family and that of her husband David have had a very long association with Caulfield Shul. Please join with me in welcoming Rani.
As a little girl growing up outside of Caulfield, Caulfield Shul was a significant part of my childhood. I loved coming into Caulfield over the high holiday period and coming to Shul to celebrate each of the Chagim together with my grandparents. My late grandfather, Imre Gashite, was a founding member of this Shul, together with his brother Latzi and several fellow Hungarian Holocaust survivors, including my husband's grandfather, Alex Rosovsky. My grandpa was an extremely proud member of the Shul and its modern Orthodox ethos. He gained much excitement from his weekly Shabbat visits, and it became clear to us in our later years that he derived much nachas from us joining him on the Chagim and being part of his chevra. Some of my fondest childhood memories are walking to and from Shul with Grandpa, each Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where he would either share a story from his past, discuss the rabbi's sermon, or catch up on what was happening in our lives. His love of being Jewish was a source of inspiration for my brother, sister, and I. He had a gentle manner of instilling a love of Judaism in us, with his careful balance of Judaism and the modern world. He made coming to Shul a fun and enriching experience for us. In my early years, Shul was a real Gashite experience, a place where my grandma, my mum, my sister, and our cousins and great auntie would all gather and squash roughly the 10 of us into our 6 seats. Each year we passionately tried to lift and rearrange the wooden seat dividers to make the seat more comfortable, despite the fact that we knew they were firmly planted down. Much to our dismay, we never succeeded in moving the wooden barriers and resorted to sitting on each other's laps in various formations. We had our designated lolly spot in the downstairs section, where we eagerly awaited our mums to throw the lollies directly to us at the permitted time. I fondly remember our lolly man, Mr. Zolibachi, who contributed generously to our fund. For our entire family, Shul was a warm place where we gathered, caught up, bonded, and when we could, joined in on the prayers that we knew. Looking back on it now, it was a place that our grandparents derived much nachas from seeing us love the Shul experience and grow up together practicing the Jewish values they had wanted for us. Fast forward to my teenage years, and shul became a favourite place for my sister Bianca and I to sit upstairs and browse the rows downstairs, perusing for our future husbands. We carefully scanned each section row by row, looking for potential suitors. Unbeknownst to me, my now husband, David Janovic, was sitting in the section directly beneath me, which might account for why I didn't notice him until I was 18. In both my early childhood and my teenage years, I was always proud to be a part of Caulfield Shul and what it stood for. And the older I became, the more I appreciated the time I had with my grandpa. During the chats we had to and from Shul, I began to understand the challenges that his generation faced upon arriving in Australia, and was beginning to appreciate the sacrifices they had made for us to live in a vibrant Jewish life here in Melbourne. In 2006, my grandpa passed away after a relatively short battle with cancer, and I was confronted by the grief that I experienced at his passing. Throughout his illness, he was determined to attend Caulfield Shul weekly and continued to gain much pleasure from the Shabbat services, no matter how ill he was feeling. Suddenly for me, Caulfield Shul was no longer the warm, happy place I remembered, but a poignant reminder of his absence. I still remember coming to Shul to mark his Shloshim service and being completely overwhelmed when I saw his empty seat downstairs. The warmth I so enjoyed when I had come with Grandpa had been replaced by my yearning for his gentle words that enveloped me at the end of a chag. For a while, I struggled to find the joy in coming into his beloved, beautiful shul without that overwhelming sense of sadness. It wasn't until in 2008, when Rabbi Ralph began his senior role at Caulfield Shul, that I immediately felt that sense of warmth and comfort in coming to shul again. The energy that Ralph and Caron together brought to the shul revived the community into a bustling one, and the shul was an exciting place to be. Ralph's sermons captivated me, and his careful choice of words at his first Rosh Hashanah service reminded me much of my grandpa in his ability to connect ancient Jewish values and teachings to life in our modern world. With his gentle approach, Ralph helped me to re-establish my joy in coming to shul again, and each year his words would provide me the same comfort that Grandpa's words had done those years before. My family and I eagerly awaited hearing Ralph's sermons each year and would analyse the topics that Ralph presented at our Yontov meals, discussing all things religion. It was so refreshing for us to discuss topics which were relevant to us and helped us draw the connection to both the shul and Judaism in the face of changing times. We loved his editions of Kolot Min HaShamayim and the coffee tent as well. In 2012, as David and I embarked on our wedding preparations, we were excited to begin the preparatory journey with Ralph. We were both surprised by how much we gained from this process, as Ralph provided much guidance and strength for us as a couple. From each of our meetings, we gained little insights and lessons into how to build a successful marriage, which has provided the foundation for our marriage still today. Together, Ralph and Caron inspired us to pursue individual careers and support one another in our own ambitions, and we model our marriage on what we learned from them both today. Whatever tricky situation popped up along the way, Ralph would find a comforting solution with a gentle and sensible piece of advice. He helped us find ways to honour our grandparents, both those who were present at the time and those who had passed away, to make sure they were all a part of our day in a big way. We were so touched by the gentle words that Ralph shared with us on our wedding, where he blessed us with the power of time, to have long and happy days together. This message about the value of time is something we appreciate now more than we have in the past. Following on from our wedding, we enjoyed attending discussion groups with other young married couples, where Ralph facilitated discussions of heated religious topics. This opportunity allowed us to meet other young married couples and to develop relationships with like-minded people whilst creating stronger connections to our Jewish identity. Ralph could always identify when we needed words from the Torah and other various biblical texts to make sense of something, and when we needed a modern inspiration, which helped us further identify with the religion. He would liken modern-day leaders to characters from our Jewish history in a way that we had not been exposed to before. We were humbled to be involved in this group and relished at the opportunity to make meaning of the religion with our esteemed Rabbi. Ralph and Caron have also been tremendously involved in the birth of our children and the one on the way. Ryder and Indy have both developed a love of Judaism and of coming to shul to see Rabbi Ralph and Chazan Dov. They are most touched when they get to come to the Bimah with David and see the Torah. But mostly they are drawn to Ralph's kindness and his warmth. He always takes a keen interest in their lives and chats to them regularly about their likes and their hobbies. They also love coming to shul for the Purim magic show, the animal farm on Hanukkah, the mums and bubs classes on Wednesday mornings, and all other fun experiences they have been afforded under Ralph's leadership. Whilst our families have enjoyed many simchas led by Ralph and the support of Caron, the friendship we have experienced from both of them over the years when times were challenging have been equally paramount to both our families. My father-in-law, Les Janovic, was a proud member and former board member of Caulfield Shul. Much like my grandpa, he had a keen value for the religion and the shul. In his final years, when he experienced significant health challenges, Ralph was a constant source of comfort for both Les and our extended families. Ralph always made the time to visit Les, and again with his words would make powerful impacts on his day. Ralph had a dignified way of providing joy for Les through religious discussion, and his visits were something Les really looked forward to. As the years progressed and his health became more challenging, Ralph's gentle words resonated strongly with us as he helped us all cope with the challenges that lay ahead. He provided comforting solutions to any situation that arose, and this culminated in his accurate portrayal of Les in his eulogy and his helpful, gentle guidance throughout the Shiva period and the milestones that followed. Both David and I have much gratitude in knowing that Ralph has and will continue to help us instill a love of Judaism in our kids in honour of their papa and their great-grandparents, all of whom had a love of Judaism and Caulfield Shul. It gives us so much comfort to know that he has always had such a strong bond with the Olstein, Gescheit, Janovic and Rosovsky families, and his power of words will be his legacy certainly on our family and I'm sure on the wider community. To Ralph and Caron, it has really been an honour and a privilege to be a part of this shul under your leadership. Your friendship and guidance has personally meant the world to us, and we look forward to continuing our relationships with you and your family in the years ahead. We wish you both every success in the future and your next endeavours, and we thank you for what you have done for us, our families, our congregation and our community. Our words may not have the same magnitude of resonance, but from me personally, thank you for making Caulfield Shul a happy place to be again. Thank you.
Thank you, Rani, for those beautiful words. Our next speakers are Sammy Breigel and Avi Bart. Sammy was employed at Caulfield Shul from 2018 to 2020 as the Youth and Programs Director. He is currently working at Mount Scopus College as a Jewish Studies teacher and earlier this year received his smicha. Avi has held leadership roles in the community at the Friendship Circle and B'nai Akiva, and more recently has worked with a range of communal organisations, including Caulfield Shul. Avi has completed his medical studies and is about to begin working as a junior doctor. He also studied for his smicha and is currently the assistant rabbi at Blake Street Shul. Please join with me in welcoming Sammy and Avi to say a few words.
Thank you very much for giving Sammy and I opportunity to speak today. We both feel very, very privileged. Rabbi Ralph, you've certainly been an enormous inspiration to both Sammy and I. And really, we've had opportunities to work with you in lots of different contexts, be they in Caulfield Shul contexts or more generally in broader contexts. For me personally, I had a lot to do with you. We were speaking about INCA, which was one of the young professional organisations that Caulfield Shul does work. And I think one of the highlights of what I've been able to do in our community over the last few years was work with you to facilitate a Tikkun Leil Shavuot a few years ago. And organising something is wonderful, but getting 120, 150 young people through the door was really, really, really special. And what attracted them was largely you and your vision. And I think that that's something which you carry in all elements. And, we've heard a lot about how you're able to connect and interact with many different elements of our community. And specifically in that INCA space, those young professionals, that post-university, pre-parenthood demographic is a really, really, really hard demographic to reach. Really difficult. You were able to reach it. with your vision of meeting people where they are. And the programming was built around non-dominant narratives in our community. And just thinking that would be something to pursue, and also giving myself and Sammy and others who organised it the freedom to organise something that we thought might be engaging was another really, really special element. And I'm just using that as one small example of many of the different things that you've done. But honestly, for me personally, beyond programming that I've had the privilege to work with you, it's really been your mentorship and your role modelling that's been very special for me. And you're someone who's incredibly busy. Howard read a very long list of things that you've been managing to do over the last 14 years. And in that time, that you made time for Sammy and I. Your door was always open to me. And as realising that I find it's funny and silly to call myself a leader, and I'm not, but finding time for people who you thought would be willing and important to invest in, and your door was always open to me and to Sammy, and we could have whatever types of conversations that we needed or wanted to have with you, and giving me opportunities and giving us opportunities in Caulfield Shul, broader than Caulfield Shul, encouraging us to push ourselves. You encouraged me to go on an interfaith trip, for example, to Indonesia and Sri Lanka, which is something that I've never done and I don't think I'm ever going to do again. It was certainly mind-expanding. But it was you and your vision of what young rabbis in this community, people who want to be in leadership positions in this community, need to have a broader perspective, and you were there to facilitate that broader perspective for us. And that role modelling that I was discussing, it was in lots of different forms. There's the content that you were role modelling, but there was also your manner. And there was also how you're interacting with people, and the organisational skills as well, and really seeing that holistic picture of what you could bring and how you could inspire people like Sammy and I and many other young people in this community to be the best version of ourselves. That was really, really special. Recently, so Sammy, you were the rabbi officiating Sammy and Esther's wedding, and you're going to be the rabbi officiating Bati and my wedding in the near future, so we've gotten to see your pastoral care skills as well. And again, as well as having a fabulous person to step us through that, but learning so much from you in that process has been really special. You've been an incredible inspiration to me and to so many other people in our community, and I think we're just touched to be the people who've been selected to stand here today to be emblematic of a much larger group of people who you've inspired in our community. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Avi. So my first memory of Rabbi Ralph was as a Year 3 GBH student at Mount Scopus, except Rabbi Ralph was not Rabbi Ralph. He was his alter ego, a Mrs. Schnuggelwasser, who would sometimes wear a dress, have a wig, and I can say, as a Year 3 student, the source of much joy and laughter for us all. Then, in 2008, with our bar and bat mitzvahs soon approaching, my family, like so many others, moved to Caulfield Shul to see and hear and speak to this newly arrived and widely revered Rabbi Genende. To say it then felt a little strange to start working a decade later at Caulfield Shul as the youth director under his direct leadership would be a bit of an understatement. There's a famous Jewish joke in which 3 Jewish mothers are boasting about their sons' jobs. The first one says that her son is a lawyer. The second says, I can do better than that, my son is a doctor. And the last mother proudly says that her son is a rabbi. Immediately, the first mother jumps in and says, what kind of job is that for a nice Jewish boy? And upon working closely with Rabbi Ralph in my new role, I soon realized that the glamour of his rousing Dvar Torah on Shabbat is really only 1/100th of the actual job that he does. In terms of the youth programs, I had a front row seat to watch Rabbi Ralph enthusiastically roll up his sleeves and complete the rabbinical jobs that very few people know about. The Hineni meetings every week, the camps, the Shabbatons, just to provide some words of Torah and encouragement to the Madrichim, the weekly bar and bat mitzvah programs on top of obviously the counselling and meeting the families before their children's bar and bat mitzvahs. And echoing what Avi has said about the Inca and the young professionals, Rabbi Ralph has a firm vision of Shul as not just a place for people to daven, but a community hub for each individual to find their kesher, their connection. As some of you may know, after the intensity of programs and learning for boys and girls during their bar and bat mitzvah period, they are often quick to exit the metaphorical and physical door of Shul, I was definitely one of them. Although I think I was the downball champion at Caulfield Shul back in the day. But we recognise this and the huge potential to connect with these teenagers. And we launched the post-bar and bar mitzvah programs of Zusha and Zohar. And I also want to point out that Rabbi Ralph did not just oversee these type of programs, he was vital to their success and took out his own precious time of his very, very packed schedule, as you can see, as we can all see. So, for example, to walk into the Zusha apartment on a Thursday night, one would be greeted by the sight of Rabbi Ralph sitting with the boys, discussing a relevant and contemporary teenage topic over pizza and chips. While his vision meant that shul was never the goal or expectation, Rabbi Ralph's warmth and personality saw these same boys soon attending Caulfield Shul on Shabbat morning for a shiur, musaf, and singing Anim Zmirot together on the bimah. I have to say to you personally, Rabbi, that when I began my position, I was a law student on track to making my mother very proud. And you never sat me down and told me to be a rabbi or go into chinuch, to go into education. Maybe if I asked you, you would have said, don't do that. But as Avi emphasized, your everyday modeling of what a rabbinic life could and should look like was priceless for my own journey. Esther and I are so grateful to Caron and you for your continued mentorship. And I think tonight, as we light the first candle on the Chanukiah, it is clear, Rabbi Ralph and Caron, that you have sparked the flame and provided light to so many souls in our time, in your time at CHC. Furthermore, every night we add a candle, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone in this room when I say that I have no doubt you will continue to light more and more candles for us all on your own Chanukiah and in all your new roles and endeavors. And I wish you a B'Hatzacha Rabbah, and thank you and Caron for all the beautiful light you have provided to our community. So we will now have a video message from Kobi Oved, the lead singer from Kolot Min HaShamayim, followed by dessert.
Dear Rabbi Ralph Hayakar, I'm so grateful for being privileged to add my own voice to this super important Hodaya event. I want to deeply thank you for being such a meaningful spiritual mentor for me and for the whole Kolot Min HaShamayim choir, as a powerful and inspiring rabbi, and as a chaver karov. I remember my first arrival to sing in Caulfield Shul 15 years ago, long time ago, and it was hearing your stunning words of wisdom that touched my heart and my neshama. Profound drashot and unique, deepful Torah messages which had an immediate, meaningful impact on me and let me realize straight away, I'm home. With your Shamayim opener words and kind eyes of love, you advocate the most important values of life and of being a human being, shenotzar b'tzelem Elokim. Thank you for being so devoted to your super important shlichut, to combine between all shades of living, for not leaving any neshama behind, and for making this world a much better place to live in, by reminding us all the message of Achdut HaBriya VaHaBoreh, and the true meaning of unity and harmony. Your inner voice inspired our voices to sing in a real emet harmony. No doubt that your leading voice gave me the inspiration to sing all colors of the wind and the higher ground for a real connection. Wishing you the best and lots of bracha min hashamayim on your next meaningful position. Keep on empowering and enhancing the light בעולם האדם. ייתן לך אלוקים תמיד, בכל זמן ובכל מקום, ברכה, אהבה ושלום. With lots of love and deep appreciation. תודה רבה לך מעומק הלב. קובי עובד. בשופר, הללו בנבל וכינור, הללו בטוב ובחול, הללויה. שמה, הללו בציל צלי תרועה, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, תהלליה, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, הללויה.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If I could just ask everyone to resume your seats. If I could just ask everyone to please resume their seats so we can move on with the program. Just start. Was a mistake stopping. Let's start.
Do we need to get their attention?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Just shush them. Just go shush.
Shh. That's okay. I will start.
Thank you.
No, good.
Amazing.
Careful not to fall here.
It's a lot to you've brought in here, so thank you for that.
My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, shh. Leah Justin is probably known to many of you as she has been actively involved in Jewish communal life in Melbourne for several decades. She has worked in adult education at the Jewish Museum as director of the Hebrew University's Florence Melton Audit Mini School, and then as the director of the Short Courses Adult Education Program. Leah is currently the co-director of the Justin Art House Museum. Please join with me in welcoming Leah.
Thanks, Henry. Oh, God. When I grew up, rabbis were revered and remote. A post-war community, the success of the rabbis was our success as a community. Rabbis had first names that distinguished them, but was not the name they were known by. The greeting was always formal. The rabbis in equal parts, formidable and forbidding. There were Chaims, Mottels, Yosefs, Jacobs and Shlomos, names redolent of communities that had been decimated. Post-war communities filled the shul, well, at least for 3 days a year, and Kol Nidre night was a time of palpable pain as the rabbis sought to suit their congregants, many who had fled God during the Shoah, and yet unflinchingly they came, compelled to be in shul. Many were non-practicing, non-observant Orthodox Jews, tightly bound to their traditions, a link to their homes and to their past. So many were post-war refugees, scarred by the Holocaust. Their rabbi became a lodestone for their losses and anguish as Kaddish was intoned. Rabbi's sermons spoke of their pain, of their losses of what was once their home. Men in black, revered yet remote, using biblical allegory to talk to the cycle of history and the Amaleks that beleaguered us as a people. But today in a world today in a world not defined by religion, yet increasingly being ransomed to its extremes, increasingly secularized and polarized, what is the role of the modern Orthodox rabbi? A rabbi's life is predicated on the existence of God. It's centered on it. I'm a practicing agnostic, and like many, I struggle with the idea of God. Yet on those high holidays, intoning blessings that have been chanted for generations, somehow we are linked, believer or not, to something greater than us. And it is indeed the conduit of the rabbi that makes this happen. It's Melbourne in the early 2000s, and strange things are happening. A young modern Orthodox rabbi is gaining quite a reputation in our community. There's an excitement about him. His name, Rabbi Ralph Genende. But what sort of name is that for a rabbi? Reuven I would have understood, but Ralph? And he's not known as Rabbi Genende, but simply Rabbi Ralph. The words seemingly in collision with one another. What did it say about him? And what did it say about us? Events in life that anchor us as Jews are of course central to the role of a rabbi. Life cycle events like birth, marriage and death. Defining moments are given a sacredness and gravitas with the guiding presence of a rabbi. But shouldn't there be more? Does a rabbi mirror his community or provide it with a mirror to allow us to see ourselves as who we are, or rather who we might be, taking us where we didn't know we needed to go? When you take on the role of rabbi, the role clothes you in every way. Your job is inextricably tied up with your sense of self, giving your life meaning and purpose. And it can elevate you only in the sense that you are conscious of demanding of yourself to live by your values and be better and truer, and how exposed you are. So who and why would you take on that responsibility? Well, Rabbi Ralph chose that path, or perhaps it chose him. But as a rabbi, a teacher, a student, a mentor, a writer, an activist, a husband, a father, a grandfather, he has proved to be a man who is the sum of his many, many parts. Growing up in South Africa at a time of apartheid, when the government's disregard for the equality of man was unrelentingly cruel and unspeakably unjust, must have marked Ralph, as did the immeasurable loss of so many relatives to the Shoah. His life in Zimbabwe was that of a man evolving with a younger and different generation to that of the many of our then communal rabbis in Melbourne. Rabbi Ralph was far removed from the European shtetl. He was young, he was modern, even if, and still, a little bit nerdy, Sorry, Ralph. Truth is truth. He didn't wear a black hat, payot, or sport a beard, and he was of both the spiritual and temporal world, speaking to and of a community of many threads, of a new generation grown up in the shadow of the Shoah, but bathed in the light of freedom, a generation of which he too was a part. The tools at his disposal were and are words. And as humans gifted with speech, we seek the solace of words, to be expression to the feelings we didn't know we needed to harness. Like Joseph's coat of many colours, Ralph wears a coat of idealism and hope as he questions and challenges and provokes us to look hard in the face at the many issues that confront us. Rabbi Ralph has become a mirror, a reflector and a headlight, showing us what we look like, where we might be headed, revealing pathways of compassion and understanding. If for many of our generation our Jewishness is a given that is often questioned, yet not always practiced in an orthodox manner, Ralph demonstrated that faith is often less about certainty than the courage to live with uncertainty. Rabbi Ralph's tenure saw him simply trying to make sense of the world we live in and the need to leave it a better place, guided always by his deeply held Jewish values, and making those values relevant not only within our own Jewish community, but to the larger Australian community within which we are historically privileged to live fully and freely. As the much revered Lord Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs Oliver Sholem has written in future tense, these are not the best of times, these are not the worst of times, but the most challenging of times. In this tense and troubled century, Jews must take a stand, not motivated by fear, but a positive stand on the basis of values by which our ancestors lived and for which they were prepared to die. Justice, equity, compassion, love of the stranger, the sanctity of life and the dignity of the human person, regardless of colour, culture or creed, Sachs concludes. So it's clear that Ralph's writings reflect these teachings and his own moral energy and a hope for a better world, whether he's writing or actively involved with asylum seekers, women's rights, the plight of the Agunah, Indigenous rights, LGBTQI issues, interfaith and multi-faith dialogue, the state of Israel, Jewish education, identity in the diaspora and climate change, all compelling, complex and urgent issues that define our times. But the use of words can be hollow. They require deeds to shape their power. As Rabbi Sachs has observed, it's by doing, by acts of tikkun, that we can redeem a fractured world. And building a community steeped in Jewish values was central. So how did Rabbi Ralph support that intent? His deep understanding of the importance of one of the greatest building blocks of community, a Jewish marriage, and his recognition that a wedding is only one day, but a marriage is for the rest of your life, coupled with his concerns about the growing divorce rate in our community, saw him designing and mandating a program called Yad B'Yad, which included a questionnaire called Prepare that a bride and groom must complete before Rabbi Ralph would marry them under the chuppah. The responses to the Prepare questionnaire opened up conversations amongst couples about their beliefs, their communication skills, financial goals, and their ability to resolve conflicts, questions many of my generation never even thought about. It's amazing what a question like, do you want your children to go to a Jewish school? Or, even more critically, after your marriage, should your mother-in-law have the keys to your marital home, can reveal about shared core values. But how superbly Ralph and his highly skilled team of Jewish professional counsellors helped couples build a firmer foundation to their Jewish marriage through the Yad B'Yad program. Despite this mandated requirement pre-chuppah, Rabbi Ralph became the go-to rabbi for so many young couples within his kehillah, and amazingly, many couples well beyond his congregation, including our own children, who felt that here was a rabbi that imbued this timeless and traditional marriage ceremony with relevance and meaning. But for me, his impact was most palpable through his teaching at the Jewish Museum for nearly 2 decades. Although he later devised many courses drawing on the writings of Chief Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Oliver Sholem, I initially hired Rabbi Ralph to teach the Melton Jewish Ethics course that was offered nearly 18 years ago. A course that dealt with the way the texts of timeless Jewish law, halacha, dealt with a myriad of ethical issues confronting us throughout the ages, and also more pertinently, those that have arisen in modern times. Issues like abortion, IVF, contraception, and one in particular which related to organ transplants, which at that time was not acceptable in the Jewish community. You never know how your teaching will impact, But in this case, Rabbi Ralph became a trigger for and a partner in facilitating change. One particular student, Ronnie Goldberg, Alav Shalom, was so confronted and then concerned about the Jewish position as expressed in the text, because he was aware of how many lives could be saved by the use of organ donations, that he began an earnest campaign to see what was possible within the bounds of our Jewish teachings, seeking Rabbi Ralph's wise counsel and advice. The results of their labours meant that organ donation was not only promoted within the Jewish community, but rulings from the rabbinate supporting Jewish organ donation was secured. Ronnie went on to lobby the government, who ultimately set aside $150 million to support organ transplants, a very tangible act of tikkun olam, and it was Rabbi Ralph who had in fact lit the spark. Today, Ralph's optimism and humanity are again revealed when he talks about our current scourge, COVID, as he wrote just recently, "I don't know why God has chosen us to be the children of COVID, but I do know that he's given us a unique opportunity, a chance to seize the moment, to discover a different kind of connectedness, a deeper type of spirituality, a more discerning kind of meaning, a more discriminating way of treating each other and the planet. Let's hope his words find their mark, because that would be the greatest gift we could offer him." And then there is Ralph's great love of poetry. It's perhaps no accident that Ralph has a great passion for words, and particularly for poetry, reading and quoting widely from Tehillim and Song of Songs, as well as many modern writers and poets as varied as Keats, Khalil Gibran, Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen. Ralph's love of verse, often cited in his drashot. Poetry is about the word, a landscape with power in its pauses, a terrain where every syllable counts. Perhaps poetry is a metaphor for our conversations in life, where we need to make every word considered, each moment measurable, where listening is as important as speaking, where the gaps between the words allow space for feelings, where silence can bear its own emotional weight. It's those gifts of knowing when to speak and when to remain silent that Ralph has demonstrated on so many occasions, dealing with his kahila and beyond, through their pain, their losses and their joys, which so often also became his. Be it at a bris, a bar mitzvah, a wedding or a funeral, Ralph's words always resonated deeply, capturing the essence and sacredness of the moment. Now, I think gratitude is both an attitude and a choice. So, how grateful I am that you, Rabbi Ralph, made so many life cycle moments meaningful for so many. How grateful I am that you stood up and were prepared to honour your core beliefs, even when the going was tough, and so often it was. You gave voice and often power to and for many who have been for too long marginalised, unseen and unheard. But I'm most grateful for the fact that you decided to not be a chazan. Because despite the many gifts you have, Ralph, and despite your fervent and enthusiastic davening, melodic singing is definitely not one of them. Outrageous. You have to be careful who you ask to speak. So, Rabbi Ralph, you're not perfect, and nor should we expect you to be. After all, aren't we all imperfectly navigating an imperfect world? But time is a relentless mistress, and as the poet Yehuda Amichai wrote, "A man doesn't have time in his life to have time for everything. He doesn't have seasons enough to have a season for every purpose." Ecclesiastes was wrong about that. But timing is also everything, and a certain stage of life, an ending can also be a new beginning, a new season of purpose and purposefulness. Rabbi Ralph, you've shaped our Melbourne community over these last 20 years, and particularly the Caulfield Kahila for over 14 years. And I think I can speak for all of us here that we are grateful that you do have the opportunity to continue to make a difference. May you flourish in this next season of your life with your beloved bride, Caron, always by your side, your soulmate and trusted confidant, and with whom you continue your life's journey and work. She'll keep you honest. And may you be blessed to continue to enrich our community with your passion, your vision, and your commitment.
Thank you, Leah, for those inspirational words. It's okay. In my opening remarks this morning, I outlined some of Rabbi Ralph's many achievements and accomplishments. He has clearly made a significant contribution to our own Jewish community and to the wider community, and he has encouraged us all to think outside of our own usual framework. With his compassion and his intellect, Rabbi Ralph has led the way in keeping modern orthodoxy alive while also engaging with the world around us and with the issues that confront us all. He has rejuvenated our souls and our hearts, as well as the shul itself. Rabbi Ralph's contribution to our shul and to our lives has been immeasurable. With the support and encouragement of Caron, he has given himself day and night to our shul, connecting to, supporting and nurturing each and every one of us, enriching our lives with his leadership, scholarship and friendship. So now it gives me enormous pleasure to introduce the man of the moment, my friend, Rabbi Ralph Genende.
In these weeks that we are now reading of dream parshiot, dream sequences in the Torah, Jacob's ladder, Yosef's stars, Pharaoh's cows, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri original owners of this land. We, as a Jewish people, know more than any others what it is to be connected to land, what it is to be connected to ancestors, what it is to be dreamers, Hayinu Kecholmim, and what a privilege it is to live in this land of such long dreamers and their dream time. Langston Hughes, great American poet, you may realize I like poetry, put it well, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, he says, life is a broken winged bird. A broken winged bird that cannot fly. The Gemara says it's a siman ra. It's a bad sign if you stop dreaming or if you can no longer remember your dreams. I've always been a dreamer. It was great concern to my late father-in-law Zelik, when during my long courtship of his daughter, this tough old soldier, he really worried about what he called this Luftmensch who was courting his daughter, romancing the very apple of his eye, Caron. So I had to find out what was this thing with this Luftmensch that I'm being called. And the definition of a Luftmensch is an impractical, contemplative person having no definite business or income, an impractical dreamer. Which is what my own parents thought about when I told them I was going to become a rabbi too. So I decided that I'd have to strive to be a practical dreamer if I was to leave some small imprint on those around me. Not only to dream, but also to beam. Not just to lead, but also to live and to love. Not just to feel, but to also help heal. It's really one of the privileges and perils of being a community rabbi, that you do get to share your dreams and your visions. By the time that I joined Caulfield Shul some 14 years ago, I'd had a pretty good idea, I'd had some experience, pretty good idea of who I was and what I wanted to achieve and what I could help shape and how I could help shape and change this Orthodox community of ours. To help move it, to help move Caulfield Shul from, as you heard, from a fractured and fractious place to one of energy and one of empathy, of one of crossing the generations and of reaching out to people of different stations. To help it recognize and to realize its place as a center of inclusive and enlightened modern orthodoxy, a progressive voice for change and social action in our very complex world, as Leah has so beautifully expressed it. Change is never easy. It's not easy for an individual. It's not easy for a family. It's certainly not easy for a community. It's not a word or a concept that is very easily adopted by orthodoxy. Orthodoxy, traditionally conservative, and often implements innovation at a glacial pace. Oseh chadashot bal milchamot. You want to do something new? You've got to be prepared to be a bal milchamot. You've got to be prepared to fight for it as well. But it was initially embraced by the board, as you've heard, by the irrepressible and talented Gary Friedman. I know Gary is here somewhere. Where is Gary? And Gary's incredibly enormous can-do spirit and the way that he still uses it to confront the enormous challenges that he faces, the daunting challenges. My vision was enthusiastically supported by Dr. Howard Zimer, strong, substantive, and committed leader. And there's a beautiful symmetry, I think, in that the president who welcomed me into Caulfield Shul has been the one who has farewelled me so well today. So thank you, Howard. And Gary and Howard and the board at the time were bold and they were visionary. They recognized that Caulfield Shul needed a paradigm shift, and maybe they sensed that orthodoxy in Melbourne as well needed to shift. I think it was Luba Olensky, you Luba somewhere here, who taught me the Yiddish expression, a Stein soll sein allein, aber a Mensch darf noch a Mensch. A stone can remain alone, but people need people. And I was gifted to work with such an incredibly gifted group of people. Debbie Zentel, the helm, we formed Tuesday, Schmoozday, Baby, and then later on, more recently, Baby Boomers Breakfast. Miriam Suss coming into the position then. Debbie's prodigious labor of love and her skillful passion and work on behalf of our elders of our community. Miriam's very seasoned presence there that she brings to everything that she does, her seasoned love and care. And then together with Lauren Norwich and her irrepressible spirit, Caulfield Bubs was born. We had Rodney Horan, my friend, with his energy and his enthusiasm and his capacity to always be like a young guy filled with fun and seeing the lighter side of situations. No Orthodox shul should be backwards in coming forwards when it comes to social action. Too many still are. To move the Torah from the Daled Amot of Halacha, which should be, but not only in the Daled Amot of Halacha, but to the Daled Amot Shel Briot, to move on to our concern for other human beings and for our environment. You need a forward-thinking organizational maven as well, called Mim Weiss, who helped create Darchei Shalom and the many activities that you've already heard of. And of course, no shul can endure and thrive without looking to the future. A Jewish future is built on learning, and it's built on young Jewish leaders, learned leaders. How fortunate I've been to be able to facilitate the move of Hineni, the progressive modern Orthodox movement, to Caulfield Shul. And I was telling you, they arrived at my house, Erev Shabbos, just on Friday, and gave me this book, and a gift, but this is the book that really moved me incredibly, just with messages that they put together from leaders over the last 14 years. How blessed we were to attract such young, outstanding youth directors to our shul. People like my son, Yali, like Eli Solomon, just to mention a few, and of course the extraordinarily talented Sammy Breigel, who is here together with his young son, and of course with Esther, if she's still here. I don't know if they've made off, because the speech has probably got too much for them. I don't blame them. And of course, to draw scholars to our shul, like that Howard has already mentioned, and I'm not going to mention, but I do want to just highlight just a few of our local scholars that have made such a difference to recently, and I know so many of you enjoyed their words. Our local heroes, David Solomon, Paul Forgaz, who is here as well, and of course, Avi Bart, a young scholar, a young rabbi, and a doctor, your mother both. When Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, visited the nascent nation at Sinai, and he saw Moshe was burning himself out there, he reminded him that just as you can't live alone, Moshe, you can't lead alone either. Moshe had his Yitro, and I've been privileged to have my own Moshe for the past 24 years here of my life in Australia. I'm referring to Moshe Lang. As a rabbi of a large congregation, you are constantly at the coalface of community with emotionally charged challenges, trauma, tsuras, and some certifiable individuals. You need a person and a place that you can go to, a soft and a safe place to reflect, to learn, and to recenter yourself. And Moshe, thank you for having provided that. I've been blessed not only with a Moshe, but I've also been blessed with having the Shivim Zkanim around me, the 70 elders, both men and women, such wise, supportive, empathic individuals. I just look around this room and I want to kind of name every single one of you, but if I start doing that, I'm in huge trouble because I'm going to leave somebody out or not give somebody the right kind of COVID, and that's another peril of being a rabbi. But I have to include a couple of people. I have to, one person particularly, I want to include somebody who's been behind the scenes there, providing me an irreverent but irreplaceable kind of counsel and wisdom. And thank you, Ron Barinholtz, wherever you are in this audience here. Thank you, Ron. I look around this room and I feel your love and I feel your friendship. Some of you have spoken today and left me wondering, and each of you who has spoken, I just can't thank you enough. But also you've left me wondering what's been left for my eulogy. You're only supposed to give miktzat shivcho shel adam b'fanav, only part of it. So really, thank you to each of you for your extraordinary tributes today and for believing in me and for dreaming together with me. Life has to be lived forwards, but it's only understood backwards. Or as Madame Kaishek put it, that's that commie, we live in the present, we dream of the future, and we learn eternal truths from the past. The past is indeed, it's like a powerful searchlight, the past. It illuminates the present, and it helps us to see into the future. And when I look back, I can see the faces of my teachers, of my rabbis, Rabbi Tanzer, Rabbi Goldfein, Rabbi Brovender. I see the faces of the late Heidi Welcher, who died of leukemia before she was 20, but it taught me that I should dream big, and that one day I could be the rabbi of a big shul. How right she was. She taught me to have a royal reach and always see that the Torah is a source not only of truth, but the Torah should and is a source of great beauty, an ineffable beauty. My friend Johnny Baker, a connector of chutzpah and charm, a man who knew this community better than it knows itself or knew itself, and a close friend to myself and of a good few people here, but especially I know of Henry and of Jeanette Lanza. And Johnny, what Johnny would give to be here today. And I look back with gratitude as well and appreciation to my PA, to Yael Gakawi, who shared my journey not only at Caulfield Shul but at Mount Scopus with such loyalty and with such consummate reliability. And I look back with wonder at the man who knows Caulfield Shul better than anybody else here knows it, and better than I ever did, to Danny. I know that I've changed Caulfield Shul, but I also know that Caulfield Shul has changed me. We transform places, but they also transmute us. I've been so deeply privileged to be trusted by families, by your families, by individuals in their most telling and trying times, in their moments of elation, in their times of desperation. To grow from them and to grow together with them, to watch their children grow and their parents age, to witness the sorrow of their aching hearts, and to feel my heart tear with their unbearable pain and soar with their resolute and remarkable spirits. And what a zchut, what a privilege it has been to be part of the lives of so many of the survivors who are so integral to Caulfield Shul. I was going to start naming them, and then I started realizing, no, better not go down that one. But there's so many, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. They've transformed me. They've helped me to clarify, to modify, to compromise, and to dig so very deep into myself, and to appreciate and to hone my own authentic voice. They taught me not to be afraid of change, but to be afraid of not changing. So whence does courage come? Where does it come from? If not from a woman who knows her mind and understands the minds of others, who has plumbed the deep wells of human frailty and fallibility, and is frighteningly true to her own self. Caron Genende. Caron Genende has copped it for being a Rebbitzin without a cause. But she is the cause of my success, the rock of my being. The mother of our 3 singular, resilient, and capable children, helping each of our children find their own authentic paths and withstand the pressures of public expectations. I know that Yali and Kali, who fortunately, at least I got one of the 2 of them here today, and Danny and Jimmy and Yoni, I know they already are and will continue to teach their children what it is to be a mensch. And thank you too for the family. We don't have much family here in Melbourne, but Hilton, Hannah and Hilton over there, just for being with us all the time. So, Caulfield Shul, you've given to me, and I've given to you. I've given you some of the very best years of my life, and you've given me some of the very best years of my life, and yes, some of the worst as well. But I leave you with a heart full of hope, and I leave you with a bucket full of dreams. I ain't given up dreaming, and nor should you. You've got energetic and enthusiastic people leading you in your new Rabbi and Rebbitzin, in Daniel and Sarah. You've got a great team leading you into the future. And the challenges ahead are immense. The world is an incredibly complex, difficult, challenging place, more complex than it's ever been, and especially has been reflected to us over the last couple of years. So I say to you all, go well, go with strength. And let's all remember the words of the inimitable Irish poet,
Had I the heavens embroidered cloths enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet. But I, being poor, I have only my dreams. I've spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, for you tread on my dreams. That's it, folks. Thank you. Thank you.
I think you need to stay there for a moment.
Okay.
You going first? I'm delighted to introduce Rabbi Halbrun. He is president and patron of the Rabbinical Council of Victoria. Upon Rabbi Halbrun's retirement as chief rabbi of the St Kilda Hebrew congregation, he was invited to take up the position of pastoral rabbi of Caulfield Shul and has worked closely with Rabbi Ralph for many years. We all know Rabbi Halbrun as a wonderful Hazan, and he was soloist and president of the Melbourne Jewish Male Choir. The Genendes and the Halbruns have a friendship that stretches over 4 decades. Please join with me in welcoming Rabbi Halbrun.
Before I speak, I'll say a few words. Especially to Leah. There are, in the world of chazonos, you have tenors, you have basses, you have jazz singers and so on, but there is one genre which you might not have heard of, and that is called the zoger. The zoger is someone, the sayer, he speaks. He probably doesn't have much of a voice, but he has a way of putting it that is more brilliant than the most brilliant chazanut that you could ever invent. And Ralph has that. Rabbonim, friends, doesn't mean that the others aren't friends. Dear Ralph, you brought the Daf Yomi to Caulfield Shul. So let me bless you in the words of Rav Nachman's questions of Rabbi Yitzchak. In the current Gemara we are learning the Masechet Ta'anit, the tractate of Ta'anit. It relates that upon taking leave of one another, following a good lunch, Rav Nachman said to Rav Yitzchak, Master, give me a blessing. So Rav Yitzchak said to him, I'll tell you a parable. And he proceeded to relate to him one of the most cherished of Talmudic stories. To what is this matter comparable? To a person, hungry, tired, and thirsty, who was walking through a desert. He found a tree whose fruits were sweet, whose shade was pleasant, and planted by a stream of water. He ate of the tree's fruits, he drank from the stream's water, and rested in the tree's shade. Upon leaving, he said, O tree, tree, how shall I bless you? That your fruits should be sweet, your fruits are already very sweet. That your shade should be pleasant, your shade is already very pleasant. That a stream should flow beneath you, already a cool stream of water flows beneath you. Rather, I will bless you as follows. May it be Hashem's will that all the saplings planted from you will be like you. And this morning, Rabbi Ralph showed us a few of the saplings that he has planted and will no doubt turn out to be a great credit to him. So, dear Ralph, Rabbi Ralph, what shall I bless you? With what shall I bless you? I was honored. Somebody mentioned that they were the president at the beginning and at the termination or at the end. Well, I was honored to induct you at the time when Caulfield Shul was at its lowest ebb. I then observed, firstly from afar, from St Kilda Shul, and then from 10 years ago, much more closely, how step by step you led Caulfield Shul's leaders and members and created a revitalized, beloved shul for everyone, with excellent services, inspiring education, appealing activities, literally from the cradle to the seniors, for youth and for young couples, and to suit every Shabbat, every Chag, indeed every possible event. Caulfield Shul emerged as a burnished, shining diamond in the Yiddishkeit crown of our community. Personally, you branched out to serve the wider community in so many ways, which makes you, in my opinion, most supremely worthy of your Sir John Monash Award recently bestowed upon you. In short, you became a beloved friend and true blessing to us all, Caulfield or Melbourne or Australia, whichever way you want to put it. So if I bless you with a remarkable rabbinical career, you've already achieved so very, very much. If I bless you with a beloved wife and joyous Jewish home, children and grandchildren, you are already abundantly blessed on this track. Rather, we pray, may Hashem continue to richly bless you in this next chapter of your life, to continue to succeed and inspire in all that you undertake, and may this bring you much love, good health, happiness, spiritual fulfillment, and contentment. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise, charge your glasses, as they say, and drink a hearty l'chaim. To Rabbi Ralph, Genende, and Caron, in appreciation of their outstanding work for our shul. And as we say, lehitraot, may Hashem bless Rabbi Ralph, Caron, and all their dear family with a wonderful, wonderful future. L'chaim, l'chaim. Pleasure.
I love that. Thank you, Rabbi. Howard is just going to make a presentation to Ralph.
Rabbi, in recognition of all the years of service and the great achievements you have achieved for all of us here. Rabbi, in appreciation of all the work and the great achievements that have occurred in the last 14 years, Caulfield Shul is proud to present you, in gratitude, a mezuzah, but there are actually four. We're not that schnoridic, so there's four. There's another three. And we present this in memory of your great dedication to the shul. And we know it's a mezuzah. You'll be going past this every day. It should be in memory every day for the rest of your life, whether it's at home or in your new work, that you'll be seeing as a token, a memory of your great years at Caulfield Shul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Howard.
There's also a certificate of service, and it says the certificate is proudly presented to Rabbi Ralph Genende, OIM, and sincere gratitude for his leadership, commitment and guidance over the 14 years at Caulfield Hebrew Congregation, and the date. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thanks again for your words.
Just stay there. Stay. Stay there. Thank you, Howard. That brings to a close the formalities for this morning's farewell and tribute to Rabbi Ralph. On behalf of Rabbi Ralph, Caron and their family, the Caulfield Board and the entire Caulfield Shul community, I thank you for your attendance and for your warm wishes. Can I please ask everyone to be upstanding to once again, by acclamation, express our appreciation to Rabbi Ralph and to our speakers, and then to remain standing for the Australian anthem and the Hatikvah.
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, with beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair. Korod balevav benima, nefesh Yehudi omi. Gentlemen, I'm afraid I must move off. Two calls. Good question. Good to see you, David. It was bizarre.
Yes. I do remember that. Won't go home.